We have had an ignition interlock program in Suffolk County since 1995. Legislation was passed in that year that created 7 pilot programs in 7 counties in the state of New York, and ours was one of the original 7 pilot counties. So our department really has extensive experience utilizing the ignition interlock device.
Each year there was approximately 4,500 individuals that are arrested for DWI in Suffolk County. Of that number, generally about 2,500 will receive either probation or a conditional discharge.
What is the ignition interlock device? It's a machine, it's a piece of technology that is actually attached to the starter and computer mechanisms of your car that a person would have to blow into a breath sample to prove that they're sober before their car will start or continue to operate.
What happens is when someone gets in the vehicle, they're going to turn the key. It's going to tell them to please wait. You wait about 15 seconds and it's going to ask them for a breath test. Once they give the breath test, it takes about 20 seconds for the machine to analyze the breath test, and then it will tell them if they could start the vehicle or not. So I would say the whole process takes between 50 seconds to a minute to start your vehicle.
For the most part, people don't have a full understanding of how ignition interlock systems actually work. It's not just a breathalyzer attached to the starter of a car. Certainly offenders, once they get an ignition interlock, do have to blow into it and register 0 numbers to get their car started. But there's also a rolling retest function.
Now once you get it going, once you get your vehicle going, between 5 minutes and 20 minutes you're going to have what's called a rolling retest. It's going to retest you again while you're driving the vehicle. So in that time you're going to have your rolling retest. If you pass your rolling retest, after the 20 minutes you'll get a random retest every hour. It might be 5 minutes after that 20 minutes, it might be 55 minutes after that 20 minutes. But you will always have a breath test every hour of the person driving the vehicle.
The cost associated with these devices varies. There's an installation charge, a deinstallation charge, and then a monthly maintenance charge. The initial cost for installation is approximately $100 a month. Different companies slightly different amounts based on the type of technology that's being used. The deinstallation charge is usually about half the installation charge, so usually $50. The rental fee for these devices is anywhere from $60 to $100, $105 a month based on the degree of technology that's required in terms of their use.
And consequently, we had a number of folks that we supervised during the early years of our involvement with Ignition Interlock who, for whatever reason, opted not to participate in the Ignition Interlock program, typically because they could not afford to do so.
Yeah, there is a general concern about the affordability of these devices for people who are required to have them. And it's of great concern to all parties, the individuals, the offenders who are going to have to get this, up and through the local governments who are going to have to support the funding of these devices. The law leaves an affordability clause in terms of it isn't mandated that all persons pay for it or the government will pay for it. And it's something that's really being worked on a county-by-county basis.
The minimum amount of time that somebody can have an ignition interlock device in their vehicle is 6 months. The probation department's policy has always been that any individual convicted of a felony DWI, we have them maintain the device in their vehicle for the entire time that they're on probation, which is generally 5 years.
Leandra's law originated, the law is named after Leandra Rosado, a young lady who was killed in an automobile crash from a woman who was not her parent, driving a group of children, young women, from a birthday party to a slumber party, and was the only victim.
Basically what Leandra's law did was it made 2 types of DWI people in the state. Before Leandra's law, probationers were required to get an interlock in their car. What was a probationer? It was a person who either had 2 DWIs or blew an aggravated DWI, meaning they blew over a .15. With Leandra's law coming into effect, they made a second type of DWI person in New York State, and that's called a conditional discharge. That's somebody who blows between, they might blow a .1, just barely over the minimum, but now they're required by New York State to get an interlock in their car.
A big part of Leandra's law in terms of the child protective portion is to get people to make those conscious separations, is to not have 3 or 4 drinks or more and then be the responsible operator of the vehicle with a child in it. The second portion of Leandra's law is the mandatory ignition interlock portion. Again, bringing this technology, this device, into the cars of motorists who have been convicted of a misdemeanor count of DWI in New York State. So two-prong aspect to the law. The Child Protective Portion law has been in effect since December of 2009. The mandatory interlock provision will go into effect August 15th of 2010.
So basically how it works is, if you're a conditional discharge and you go to your county and you have to get an interlock in, they give you a list of all 6 certified interlocks in the state, and you get to pick the one that you want to use, okay, depending on the requirements of the county. However, with the probationers, the counties now have the probation officers in each county now can decide what technology they want to use for their probationers.
We've been using this device for close on 20 years, and the device has developed a lot of fail-safe mechanisms. We don't just get a positive blood alcohol reading or nothing. We get a range of indicators that can indicate that somebody's attempting to deceive or tamper with the device, and all of those are investigated.
The agencies that we report this data to are Stop DWI, probation departments, district attorneys. Every county has their own monitoring agency that they use. With probationers, it's always the probation office in the counties. There's 62 counties in the state of New York, so every county uses their probation to monitor the probationers. But the conditional discharge people, those are people who blew like a .01, nothing crazy, but they did get a DWI. With Leandra's law, it's now making them go and get an interlock in their car for a minimum 6 months to a year. So those people can be monitored by either Stop DWI, probation, or district attorneys, whichever county they're in.
The technology regarding bypassing the device is fairly sophisticated, and there's a memory chip located in the devices that will interpret if there has been a signal that's interrupted for any reason. So bypassing it or having someone who's real good with electronics probably is not going to work.
The device will inform the probation officer that somebody's made that attempt, so it can be followed up then to determine what is going on, refer the person for treatment, or refer the matter back to the court.
The type of interventions that can be used to try and minimize this at-risk behavior, people driving while intoxicated, it's not one answer. Bringing ignition interlock into the forefront is the first opportunity we've seen for governments to bring technology into the problem solution. We in the past have used education, we've used treatment, we've used the judicial system, and we still haven't achieved the overall gains that I think our society demands, especially when you get very high-profile cases from time to time. And you want to maybe now use the opportunity to bring technology as well into that solution.